Returning home after an exhausting business trip, I found the house enveloped in a silence that felt heavier than usual. My parents were away attending a family celebration, which meant that only my brother Finn and I were left to occupy the quiet rooms. As I stepped through the door, I could hear the faint, melodic vibrations of his guitar drifting from the living room, soft tunes that seemed to barely disturb the stillness of the afternoon. Secrets possess a peculiar gravity. They always seem destined to be pulled into the light eventually. However, I never could have anticipated that our hidden truths would surface in such a startling manner. When my brother unexpectedly entered my room and found me alone, my entire body locked in place. The events that unfolded next caught us both off guard, shattering the familiar boundaries we had known and fundamentally altering the connection between us. Physically drained and mentally taxed from the demands of my trip, I dropped my suitcase onto the bed, desperate for even a moment of reprieve. The sight of the soft, inviting sheets felt like a sanctuary. I quickly shed my professional attire, drew the blinds to block out the world, and slid beneath the covers. The familiar weight of the old blanket felt like a protective shield as I closed my eyes, the comforting scent of lavender and aged books, the signature aroma of my childhood room, filling my senses. Slowly, the lingering stress of the corporate world began to dissolve. Inevitably, my thoughts drifted toward Finn. I thought about his quick, playful smiles and the solid, grounding feeling of his hugs. Although it had only been a few months since our last encounter, he appeared strikingly different to me now. He had reached a new height, and there was an undeniable confidence in the way he carried himself, a certain poise in his movements that I hadn't noticed before. These observations sparked a confusing internal dialogue, making me feel restless beneath the sheets. My mind became a carousel of memories, a specific touch, a fleeting smile, or simple moments from our youth that suddenly felt recontextualized and charged with a new, difficult-to-define energy. It was a volatile mix of curiosity and a deep-seated instinct that these thoughts were transgressing a sacred line. He is my brother, I reminded myself sternly, attempting to banish the intrusive imagery. Seeking a distraction, I reached for my phone and resumed a TV drama I had been following. Ironically, the episode opened with a sweeping romantic sequence that only served to amplify the very emotions I was trying to suppress. That was the moment the door creaked. I froze. My eyes locked onto Finn's, and his gaze held an intensity that felt far more pointed than usual. My breath hitched, and I felt a traitorous heat creep up my neck and across my cheeks. Maya? Finn's voice was a low vibration that sliced through the silence. His hand remained tethered to the doorknob, and his mere presence in the doorway made me feel a jarring combination of acute discomfort and a strange, underlying spark of excitement. What, Finn? I snapped, my voice laced with an embarrassment I tried to weaponize. Can't you ever knock? He recoiled slightly, visibly taken aback by my sharp tone. He looked down, awkwardly rubbing the back of his neck. I just thought you might be hungry or thirsty. I was coming to see if you wanted a drink. His eyes flickered toward the rumpled blankets, and for a split second, a knowing smile played on his lips before his own face flushed a deep crimson. No, I'm fine, I said, my voice trembling as I fought to regulate my breathing. It's late, Finn. I'm exhausted. Can you just leave? He lingered, shifting his weight from side to side as if locked in a silent internal debate. He looked back at me, his eyes swirling with a mixture of tension and an emotion I couldn't quite identify. Sure, he whispered. I'll go. He turned to exit, his hands still resting on the frame, when a reckless impulse took hold of me. Wait, I called out. The word hung in the air, a bridge I wasn't sure I should have built. He stopped instantly, his expression shifting from resignation to a sharp, focused curiosity. A silent, heavy question seemed to vibrate between us. I struggled to find an explanation for why I had stopped him. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for snapping at you. I finally managed to stutter. He offered a slight, almost imperceptible nod, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second before darting away. The atmosphere had shifted. It felt weighted, personal, and electric. I had no concept of what his next move would be. "It's okay," he said softly, but his voice now carried a new, resonant intensity that sent my heart into a frantic rhythm. "I really should have knocked." We stood there in a charged vacuum of sound, the initial awkwardness mutating into something far more complex and volatile. He moved a step closer, and the air between us felt thick, as if it were saturated with unspoken desires and dangerous questions. "So," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper as he tried to catch my eye. "What exactly were you doing in here that made you so jumpy?" Heat flooded my face again. I groaned and yanked the blanket over my head, though the trapped warmth only made the sensation of blushing more intense. "Oh my goodness, Finn, can we please just not talk about this?" I heard him laugh, a soft, melodic sound that was both warm and dangerously gentle. It sent a localized shiver down my spine. "Relax, Meyer," he said. "I'm just teasing you." I felt the mattress dip as he sat on the edge of the bed. His presence felt massive, far larger than the physical space he occupied. I peeked out from the safety of the covers and glared, trying to reclaim some shred of my dignity. "You are such a pain," I muttered. He grinned, a look that made my heart skip an entire beat. "Maybe. But you care about me anyway." I remained silent because I knew he was right. The new feelings were becoming an unstoppable tide, eroding the walls I had built. The ensuing silence was heavy, and I felt his gaze lingering on me, as if he could peel back the layers of my mind and see the very thoughts I was trying to bury. I clutched the blanket tighter, a futile attempt at protection. "So," he began, trying to maintain a casual veneer. "Who were you thinking about?" "What?" I bolted upright, my face burning. "No one." "I wasn't. What kind of question is that?" He shrugged with an annoying amount of composure. "I'm just saying, you seemed pretty immersed in whatever it was. Must have been someone special." His eyes were fixed on mine, dancing with a mixture of playfulness and something much darker. "It was just a scene in a TV show," I whispered, trying to sound indifferent. "Oh, really?" His voice shifted again, becoming deeper, more focused. "What was so special about the show that it got you this worked up?" I couldn't find the words. My mind was a blur of static, and my pulse was thundering in my ears. "Meyer," he said, his voice a low, velvet command. His eyes didn't waver, and I felt my skin tingle as if he were actually touching me. When his gaze dropped to my lips, the atmosphere reached a breaking point. The room felt small, the air thick and humid like a summer storm about to break. Finally, he reached out. His fingers grazed my jawline, a touch so light it was almost a suggestion, yet it sent a jolt of electricity through my entire frame. "Meyer," he breathed, his face inches from mine. "Tell me to stop." His fingers traced the line of my neck, and I could feel the warmth of his breath against my skin. I swallowed hard, looking into eyes that were filled with a raw, undeniable hunger. "What if I don't want you to?" I whispered, the words so faint they were almost lost to the room. My body seemed to act on its own accord, leaning into his space even as my conscience screamed for restraint. He let out a soft, dark laugh, a sound that sent a fresh thrill of terror and excitement through me. He moved closer still, until the space between us vanished. "That's the problem," he whispered against my lips. And then he kissed me. It began as a tentative, questioning touch, but it rapidly spiraled into something desperate and consuming. All the years of suppressed emotions and hidden curiosities erupted at once. My hands found his hair, pulling him closer as the world outside the room ceased to exist. Every boundary we had ever known was swept away in a sudden, violent storm of sensation. My back hit the mattress, and the weight of his body followed. Suddenly, a sharp, rhythmic trill cut through the haze. My phone was vibrating on the nightstand. The screen flashed with a single word that made my blood run cold: MOM. The sound felt like a physical blow, a harsh intervention of reality. We froze, the silence now feeling like a heavy, judgmental weight. My hand shook as I reached for the device. It's Mom," I croaked, my heart sinking as I looked at Finn. I saw the same flash of panic and stark realization in his eyes. I answered, trying to force my voice into a normal register. "Hey, sweetie," as she said, her voice bright and oblivious. "Just checking in. Are you and Finn okay? I wanted to make sure you two were getting along while we're out." "Yeah, Mom. Everything is fine," I lied, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. Finn was watching me, his eyes burning with an intensity that made it hard to focus. I knew I had to be perfect. One slip, one tremor in my voice, and the life we knew would end. "We're just having a quiet night. Finn's, or he's listening to music in his room, and I'm about to hop in the shower." "That's good to hear," she replied warmly. "I'm just glad you two aren't at each other's throats. Don't stay up too late." When I hung up, the air felt different. The spell hadn't been broken, but it had been tainted by the reality of the world outside. Finn moved away, sitting on the edge of the couch in the shadows, his body tense. I sat beside him, the weight of our shared secret pressing down on us. "I'm sorry," I whispered, reaching out to touch his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "It's fine," he said flatly. "It's probably for the best." He looked at me again, his eyes a battleground of hurt, confusion, and a lingering desire that hadn't faded. "You want me to go, right?" It was a challenge. A test. I didn't answer because I didn't know the truth. My body wanted him to stay, while my mind was terrified of what that meant. "I don't know," I finally sobbed. "I just don't want to feel this way anymore." That was all the invitation he needed. He reached out, his hand cupping my face, and his lips found mine again, this time with more urgency, as if the interruption had only added fuel to the fire. He pulled me closer, and I let go of the last of my control. The next morning, the sunlight felt like an intrusion. Finn stirred beside me, his eyes opening to meet mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the reality of the previous night settling in like a heavy fog. "Did we really do that?" he mumbled, a ghost of a smile appearing before being replaced by a deep, pained uncertainty. It wasn't a dream. It was our new reality. We had crossed a forbidden line, and as I looked at my brother, I knew that our lives were now a dangerous, beautiful, and terrifying secret that we would have to carry forever.